One golden morning, in the tranquil village of Ezoba, something extraordinary stirred the air. From the edge of the dense Iram forest, a woman of otherworldly beauty emerged, walking with the quiet grace of the morning mist. Her skin glowed like the sun reflected on river water, her eyes shimmered with the weight of untold stories, and her presence turned every head she passed. But it wasn't just her stunning form or her regal walk that drew gasps. It was the large, flawless gourd she balanced on her head, unmoving, untouched by the breeze. She didn't speak a word as she passed through the village square, past market traders, hammering blacksmiths, quiet elders, and especially the young men who stood frozen, jaws slack, hearts pounding. That afternoon, the entire village gathered in the square once again, buzzing with whispers, when the woman returned and spoke for the first time. Her voice, soft and melodic, like the hum of a lullaby, rolled over them. "I have come to choose a husband," she declared, "but only the man whose stone can knock this gourd from my head shall be worthy. If it falls to the ground, I will marry him, without hesitation." The square erupted in disbelief and excitement. One by one, eager suitors, warriors, hunters, even the sons of the village chief, scrambled for stones and took their chance. Some stones passed through the gourd as if it were air. Others bounced off it like pebbles striking iron. No one succeeded. Not far from the noise and commotion, in a small mud house near the forest edge, lived a humble young man named Tunde. He wasn't wealthy, nor was he a warrior, but everyone knew of his gentle heart and the way he cared for his aging mother, Mama Nilo, carrying bundles of firewood on his back and tending their small yam fields each day. That morning, like always, he'd gone to the farm before dawn and was now home, helping his mother roast yams in the smoky kitchen. The scent of palm oil and ground pepper hung warmly in the air when his friends rushed in, shouting breathlessly, "Tunde! You won't believe what's happening. A goddess of a woman has appeared. She says anyone who knocks the gourd from her head becomes her husband." Tunde chuckled and stirred the pot. "And what has that to do with me?" But Mama Nilo turned and touched his arm with a smile. "You're old enough to take a wife, my son. Go and try. Sometimes blessings arrive in strange robes." Though unsure, Tunde washed up, changed into a clean white wrapper, and made his way toward the growing crowd. When he arrived, the woman still stood tall and calm, the gourd perfectly still atop her head, untouched by all the flying stones. Tunde stood back, uncertain, until he noticed a tiny stone lying by his foot, smooth and round like a kola nut. He picked it up, sighed, and whispered, "Let me try so Mama won't say I didn't." He tossed the stone not with force but with a gentle flick, and to everyone's shock, the moment it brushed the gourd, the impossible happened. It fell. The square fell silent, then erupted. Cheers filled the air. The woman stepped forward and embraced him softly. "You are the one," she whispered. Tunde stood stunned, unsure if he was dreaming. Together they walked back to his home, hand in hand. When Mama Nilo saw them arrive, she stepped outside and shielded her eyes from the sun. "My son?" she said, astonished. "Who is this radiant woman?" Tunde smiled shyly. "Mama, this is my wife." Her hand flew to her chest. "Eh, wonders shall never end." But as night fell and the moon cast silver over the compound, no one yet knew. The true mystery had only just begun. After supper, as they sat outside beneath the stars, Mama Nilo turned to her new daughter-in-law. "My dear, you've brought light into our home, but tell me, what is your name? Where do you come from?" The woman looked up at the moon, her eyes deep as ocean wells. A slow smile curved her lips. "My name is Marima," she said softly, "and I come from a place beyond rivers and beyond knowing. My home lies beyond the mountains." "Marima," said softly, her voice carrying the weight of something far older than time itself. "A place people no longer speak of." There was a silence in her words, one that chilled the air for a heartbeat. Mama Nilo tilted her head, uncertainty flickering in her eyes, but then she let out a small laugh and waved her hand. "As long as you bring peace to my son, you are welcome here with open arms." They spoke for a while longer, mostly Mama sharing stories of Tunde's childhood, his mischief, his kindness, his love for roasted snails. And Marima listened with a gentle smile, though her gaze often drifted to the shadows as if listening to something only she could hear. That night, as the family lay to rest, Tunde slept deeply, worn from the day, but Marima remained wide awake. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark like twin embers, unblinking. When the cock's crow pierced the morning silence, Tunde prepared for the farm, wrapper tied, cutlass slung, leftover yam packed, but was surprised to find Marima already awake, her wrapper tied neatly, a woven basket in hand. "I'll come with you," she said, her voice sweet but firm. Tunde blinked. "Are you sure? It's a long walk, and the sun can be harsh." Before he could finish, Mama Nilo stepped out, adjusting her wrapper. "Marima, my child, rest today. Let him go alone. Your marriage is still fresh." But Marima only smiled, her tone unwavering. "I want to see where my husband works. I want to help." There was something final in her words, and Mama said no more. And so the three of them, Tunde, Marima, and Mama, made their way toward the farm. Birds chirped as they walked the damp forest path, the scent of morning dew and wild herbs filling the air. But deep within Marima, no thoughts bloomed of crops or companionship. Only vengeance curled in her chest. The journey was quiet. Tunde hummed an old melody, unaware that beside him walked a storm wearing the face of beauty. Marima's eyes never stopped moving, scanning the trees as if waiting for a signal. When they arrived, Mama Nelo rested beneath the shade of an oduma tree while Tunde cleared weeds. Marima stood still near a patch of cassava, gripping her basket with white-knuckled hands. Then came a shift. The breeze changed, colder, heavier, and the trees shivered. A low hum echoed through the farm, distant but deliberate, like a chant. Tunde paused. "Did you hear that?" Marima smiled faintly. "Just the wind." But Mama, seated quietly, frowned. "That wind. It sounds like it's calling someone." Tunde and Marima continued working. At one point, he sliced open a ripe pawpaw for breakfast, but gasped. Its flesh was black, writhing with white worms. He stepped back, confused. "This came from the same tree I always pick from." Marima laughed gently. "Not everything is as it seems, my love." Tunde turned toward her, and she was humming, a song he hadn't heard in years, one from his childhood. He narrowed his eyes. "Where did you learn that song?" She turned slowly, her smile wide but hollow. "I've always known it, haven't you?" A coldness ran down his spine. Something deep inside stirred, a long-buried memory clawing its way back. That night, his sleep was restless. In his dreams, he stood in a fog-drenched forest, surrounded by laughter. He saw a young girl crying, holding a gourd of food, mocked by a group of boys, and when among them he saw himself laughing. He turned away in shame, but when he looked again, the girl was gone, and in her place stood Marima, eyes glowing red. "You forgot me," she whispered, "but I never forgot you." He jolted awake, drenched in sweat, his chest heaving. Morning arrived, but its light did not ease the chill. Tunde sat up on his bamboo bed, the dream clinging to him like wet cloth. Marima lay beside him, her back turned, breathing calmly, but something in his spirit cracked. That girl. It was her. He stood quietly and stepped outside. Mama Nilo was already sweeping the yard, her movements slow and steady. She looked up. "My son," she said gently, "you didn't sleep well." Tunde hesitated, then asked, "Mama, have you ever had a dream that feels more like a memory?" She paused, leaning on her broom. "Dreams are messengers. Some come from the spirit, some from the past. What did you see?" Tunde said nothing. He turned slowly and walked to the back of the house, where the past was waiting. Tunde sat by the stream for a long while that day, watching the water ripple and swirl, as if hoping it would carry away the weight in his chest. But it was later, just before sunset, that something unsettling happened. As he passed the back of the house on his way to the firewood pile, his Eyes accidentally caught sight of Marima bathing beneath the banana trees. He quickly looked away in shame, but not before his gaze landed on a scar just beneath her left shoulder, a faint, curved burn, like one left by searing firewood. Tunde froze. The image burned through time, igniting a memory buried deep. Long ago, during a foolish, cruel moment from his boyhood, he and other boys had teased a poor girl carrying food to her grandmother. In their mockery, the girl had stumbled and fallen near a cooking fire. The smell of burnt flesh, the sound of her cries and the laughter that followed. He had forgotten it for years, but that scar, that exact shape, now lived on Marima's back. His legs weakened. It's her, he thought, chest tightening. That girl, it's her, that night he could not eat. He sat in silence, eyes fixed on Marima as she hummed that eerie melody while stirring the evening soup, the same song from his dream. Later, as she slept peacefully, Tunde slipped outside to the bench where Mama Nilo sat peeling bitterleaf. He finally spoke. "Mama, I think Marima is someone from my past, someone I wronged." Mama looked up, concerned. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, then said, "I saw a scar on her back. I've been dreaming of a girl we once mocked. She tripped near the fire. We laughed. She ran. She never came back. We all thought the forest had taken her. That scar is the same, Mama. What if she's here not for love, but for revenge?" Mama's eyes widened, her fingers stilling. "My son, be careful. She did not come like an ordinary bride. She came with a calabash no man could touch. That is not a normal woman. Spirits don't forget wounds." That night, Tunde built a small fire and sat before it, staring into me. The flames. As the embers cracked and rose, the fire suddenly flared high, dancing with a strange, unnatural energy. And far behind him, in the stillness of the hut, Marima stood at the window, bathed in moonlight. Her face was calm, but within, her storms raged. She remembered it all. The life before, the small mud house at the edge of Umaka, where she once lived with her mother. Back then, she wasn't Marima. She was Della, a quiet, awkward girl mocked for her patched wrapper and dusty feet. She had once admired Tunde from afar, but he had joined the laughter that scarred her. That afternoon, as she delivered food to her grandmother, Tunde and his friends had mocked her, spilled her food, and called her names. And when she ran, crying, she tripped and fell against hot firewood. Her body healed, but her soul remained scorched. That night, she had vanished into the forest, her cries swallowed by the dark trees. But she had not been alone. The spirits of the forest had found her. They listened, they offered power. They reshaped her into something in between, neither spirit nor mortal, with beauty spun from magic and a heart cooled by time. The calabash she carried was no ordinary vessel. It held ashes of her pain, bound by a curse only one man could undo, the one who had first broken her. Tunde. Only his hand could bring the gourd down, and he would never understand why, until too late. For weeks she had watched him, seen how he lived gently, as if the past had never touched him. That peace and that forgetting was what she had come to destroy. But something had shifted. That afternoon at the farm, when he had shielded her from thorns and offered her water with kind eyes, her heart had faltered. When he called her my wife with softness, her breath caught. "No," she whispered now, alone in the dark, pressing her hand to her chest. "Do not forget what he did." He had laughed. He had watched her cry, yet his voice no longer held cruelty. Could people change? Had he changed? Had she? Marima stepped into the center of the hut and gently lifted the lid of her calabash. Inside, golden mist swirled, glowing. Faintly, faces appeared, and her grandmother, Tunde, his laughing friends, her own tear-streaked reflection as a girl. The past stared back at her, flickering, breathing, not dead yet. Like memories suspended in water, the swirling mist inside the calabash shimmered as Marima's fingers touched its glow. And it whispered, "Choose. Love or vengeance. One will devour the other." Her hands trembled as she closed the lid, and for the first time since she had returned to Ezoba, she felt lost. Over the next 3 days, Tunde noticed the change in her. Marima no longer hummed while she cooked. Her smiles thinned like cracked clay, and she drifted off into silence each evening. Tunde said nothing, but in his heart he knew. The fire had warned him, the skies had darkened too often. Something was nearing. That night, a heavy blackness veiled the village. Even the moon refused to show its face. Inside the hut, Marima stood over the sleeping Tunde, her heart pounding like war drums. She had waited years for this, to complete the circle, to finish the vow. "This is justice," she whispered, her voice thick with tears. "You laughed at my pain. You shattered what was pure. Now you sleep peacefully." She leaned close. But then, in the dark, Tunde stirred and mumbled, "I'm sorry." Her body stiffened. "What did you say?" she whispered. He turned slightly, still dreaming. "Forgive me. I didn't know I hurt you. I was just a boy." Her knees nearly buckled. The words struck like a blow. The spirits had warned her, "Do not look into his eyes. Do not listen to his voice." But she had done both. Marima fled into the night, barefoot and gasping, not feeling the thorns that tore at her legs. She ran to the edge of the forest where the ancient trees murmured her name. There, beneath the starless sky, she fell to her knees. "Why can't I do it?" she cried. "Why am I so weak?" The mist inside the calabash flared violently, and the spirits' voices roared. "You made a vow, Marima. You were chosen. For retribution, not for mercy. Finish it, or we will finish it for you." Her scar blazed like fire, pain searing across her back, as if she had just fallen into flame again. She screamed into the earth, torn between vengeance and redemption. Meanwhile, Tunde awoke in a cold sweat, a sharp stillness in the air. Marima was gone. He stepped outside and saw the footprints, light and hurried, leading toward the forest. He followed. Deep in the clearing, he found her kneeling before the open calabash, shoulders shaking. "I tried," she whispered. "I tried to do it. But I couldn't. Why couldn't I?" From behind, Tunde's voice answered, gentle and unshaken, "Because you're not a killer, Della." She froze. That name, her real name, cut through the air like a blade. She turned, her face wet with sorrow. Her lips trembled, but no words came. "I know who you are now," he said. "I remember the scar. I remember that day. I laughed when I should have defended you. I mocked what I didn't understand. I lived as though none of it mattered. But it did, and I am sorry. Truly sorry." Her eyes flooded with fresh tears. "Do you think sorry erases the years I cried to the moon, alone? Do you think it heals the nights I begged the wind to carry my pain away?" "No," he said softly, stepping closer. "But let me carry it now. If taking my life gives you peace, I won't fight you." The forest went silent. Even the leaves held their breath. Marima whispered, "I came to destroy you. But now, I fear I've destroyed myself." Her legs gave out and Tunde caught her. The ground trembled, the calabash exploded with violent mist, ghostly figures with hollow eyes. And whispering mouths rose from the smoke, shrieking with betrayal. "You disobeyed, you broke the pact. Mercy was never yours to give." The spirits surged toward her, arms outstretched. But Tunde stepped between them and her. "Take me," he shouted, "but leave her alone." The spirits hissed and lashed. Marima cried out as the mist wrapped around her, trying to pull her back into the forest realm. Tunde held tight to her hand. "No, you don't belong to them anymore. You belong here with us." Just then, from the forest path behind them, Mama Nilo appeared. Her eyes were fierce, her steps unwavering, and in her hands she carried a calabash of palm oil, cola nuts, and white chalk. She lifted her voice into the night, strong and steady, as she began to chant, "O ancestors, we call upon you to break this bond," Mama Nilo cried, lifting the calabash high, "and let the child return home." In that moment, a radiant burst of light surged from the vessel in her hands, slicing through the mist like a blade of dawn. The spirits shrieked, their forms unraveling, retreating into the shadows of the forest. The air stilled, the wind softened. The clearing grew quiet as the ancient spell shattered. Marima collapsed into Tunde's arms, her breath shallow but her spirit free. The sun rose slowly over Ezoba, golden light stretching across rooftops still wet with morning dew. But In Tunde's compound, it marked something far deeper, a rebirth. Wrapped in a soft cloth Mama Nilo had woven herself, Marima lay beside the hearth, her face no longer clouded with secrets, but serene, as though she had finally exhaled the years of sorrow lodged deep within her bones. Tunde sat quietly beside, her gently rubbing herbal balm across the scar on her back. She no longer flinched. The mark had become not a wound, but a reminder, not of pain, but of survival. Outside, Mama Nilo stirred yam porridge over the fire, humming an old lullaby. "She's free now," she whispered, dropping a leaf into the pot. "The spirits have let her go, but the road ahead will still ask for strength." In the weeks that followed, Marima remained quiet. She worked in the garden with Mama, sat under the udala tree, and listened to children laugh in the distance. The villagers who once viewed her with awe now saw a woman relearning what it meant to be human. At first, she struggled to sleep, fearing the spirits might return, but each night, Tunde sat by her side, holding her hand, whispering, "They're gone, you are safe," and slowly she began to believe him. One afternoon, Marima stood before a small mirror and saw herself clearly. Not the enchanted figure, not the mask of vengeance, but Nimilai, the girl who had once dreamed of love and peace. She turned to Tunde and said, "I want to go to the stream, not to hide or wash away the past, but to fetch water for my home." He smiled. "Then let's go together." The seasons shifted. The once powerful calabash sat quietly on a shelf, filled only with dried petals and kola nuts, no longer a vessel of spirits, but a simple memory. Marima, now fully embraced by the people of Ezoba, became known not for mystery, but for her, wisdom and grace. Children gathered at her feet to hear stories, not of curses and darkness, but of forgiveness, courage, and choosing love, even when it is the hardest thing to choose. And every morning she and Tunde walked side by side to the farm as birds sang low in the trees and sunbeams danced over their small compound, a home that once held shadows, now warmed by laughter. One day, as they sat peeling yams by the fire, Marima asked softly, "Mama, do you think they'll ever forget what I was?" Mama Nilo paused, wiped her hands and smiled. "Forget? Maybe not. But forgetting is never as powerful as forgiving. And you, my daughter, are forgiven." Marima looked down at her hands, hands that once trembled with rage, now steady, full of grace. She had shed her pain like old skin. Every morning she woke. She chose not to be the spirit the forest made, but the woman she was always meant to become. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the palm trees, Tunde led her to the village square, where the elders stood waiting. But they did not come to judge, they came to bless. One elder raised the old calabash and declared, "What once carried spirits now carries peace. This woman came to us in silence, but stayed in truth. She has shown us mercy's power." Marima knelt, her head bowed, tears slipping down her cheeks. Tunde placed his hand on her shoulder. That night, the village danced, not in fear, but in celebration, not as strangers bound by curses, but as a family reborn. A year later, the udala tree stood tall at the edge of their farm. Beneath it, Marima sat weaving cloth, her sleeping baby strapped to her back. Tunde approached, firewood in hand and a grin on his face. "He has your nose," he teased, peeking at their child. "But my loud cry," she replied, and they both laughed. The past, with all its sorrow, had become a distant drumbeat, still echoing but no longer steering their lives. As the wind rustled the leaves above them, Marima whispered, "Maybe I was sent here to find pain. But I stayed because I found love." And under the udala tree, a once cursed woman and a once careless boy held hands, two souls scarred and mended by time, finally at peace.